My husband leaned close beneath the White House chandeliers and whispered, "Do not embarrass me tonight." 30 seconds later, a four-star admiral saluted me and called me Colonel. Nolan wore a black tuxedo and the confident smile he reserved for investors. I wore a simple midnight blue gown with no rank ribbons or military insignia visible. Inside my small handbag were three things: my official invitation card, a brass compass from Operation Lantern Reach, and a folded list of names belonging to people who could not attend the ceremony. Before we reached check-in, Nolan touched my elbow. "Remember why we are here." "I know why I am here. This evening matters to Ward Sentinel. Several members of the contracting group will be inside." He lowered his voice. "Do not correct anyone. Do not turn conversations into military briefings. And please do not introduce yourself by rank." I rarely introduce myself by rank. You do when you feel ignored. I looked at him. No, other people use my rank when the setting requires it. His smile remained in place. Tonight, it does not. At the security desk, Nolan stepped forward before I could speak. Nolan Ward, founder of Ward Sentinel Logistics. He offered his invitation. The hostess checked the screen and nodded. "And your guest?" "My wife Eliana." He glanced toward two executives waiting behind us. "She handles some administrative logistics for the Army." The men smiled politely. I did not correct him. Nolan interpreted silence as obedience. He smirked and whispered again, "Do not embarrass me tonight." I reached into my handbag and handed the hostess my invitation card. She scanned the code. Her expression changed. She looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. "One moment, ma'am." Nolan frowned. "Is there a problem?" The hostess straightened. "No, sir." She touched the communication device near her wrist and spoke quietly. A military protocol officer appeared from the adjoining hall. He checked my identification and invitation, then looked toward the reception room. Several guests turned when Admiral Everett Callahan approached us. 4 silver stars marked each shoulder of his dress uniform. Nolan's smile became wider. He assumed the Admiral had come to greet him. "Admiral Callahan," he said, extending one hand. "Nolan Ward, Ward Sentinel Logistics." The Admiral did not take it. He stopped in front of me. I came to attention. Because I wore civilian dress, I kept my hand at my side. Admiral Callahan raised his hand in a formal salute. "Good evening, Colonel Ward." The hallway became quiet. He lowered his hand. "It is an honor to finally recognize you in public." Nolan's arm dropped slowly. The Admiral continued. "More than 400 service members, dependents, and medical patients returned safely because of the logistics architecture you designed." One of the executives behind us whispered, "Colonel." Nolan looked at me as though I had changed identities while standing beside him. Admiral Callahan turned slightly. "Mr. Ward, I understand you are Colonel Ward's guest." Nolan cleared his throat. "I believe the invitation was connected to my company. It is connected to Operation Lantern Reach." The Admiral looked back at me. "Colonel, may I speak with you privately for a moment?" We moved several feet away. Nolan remained close enough to watch but not hear every word. Admiral Callahan lowered his voice. "Did you authorize Ward Sentinel to submit your harbor spine model as corporate property?" I felt the brass compass through the fabric of my handbag. "No, sir." "Did you serve as a paid technical advisor for your husband's company?" "No, sir." His face remained controlled. Then we have a serious problem. Behind him, Nolan's smile disappeared for the second time. I had served in the Army for more than 24 years. My specialty was strategic logistics, the kind of work people rarely noticed until transportation failed. Operation Lantern Reach began after a severe Pacific storm destroyed part of an Allied airfield and damaged a nearby port. Families, injured personnel, medical patients, and essential crews needed evacuation. Aircraft alone could not carry everyone. Ships could not enter on the normal schedule. Fuel stocks were divided across damaged facilities. The weather changed every hour. I designed a system linking maritime movements, helicopter corridors, ground, convoys, medical priority windows, and fuel reserves. We called it Harbor Spine. The system was not one brilliant line drawn on a map. It was thousands of decisions made by hundreds of people. Sergeant Major Odessa King coordinated the final departure sequence. Navy crews adjusted loading plans. Airmen created fuel windows. Medical teams identified which patients could tolerate each route. My responsibility was to make every moving part reach the same place at the right time. More than 400 people were evacuated. 12 critically ill children reached advanced care. No aircraft was lost to a fuel miscalculation. No patient was left because two systems failed to communicate. Much of the operation remained classified afterward. I could not discuss locations, partner forces, or precise methods. Nolan understood that silence. Then he learned to use it against me. At business dinners, he introduced me as a military administrator. When clients asked what I did, he answered before I could. She keeps forms moving. If I corrected a technical claim, he smiled and said, "This is why I ask her not to turn dinner into a briefing." At home, his tone changed. "You cannot let me have one room." I corrected a false statement. "You needed everyone to know you were smarter." I needed them not to make a decision based on incorrect information. He called that arrogance. I called it accuracy. 2 years earlier, Nolan began asking about Harbor Spine. At first, the questions sounded harmless. Could the system work in a commercial port? Possibly. Who owns the method? It was developed during government service. But the ideas came from you. They came from a joint team. Could you advise Ward Sentinel privately? No. We are married. That does not remove conflict of interest rules. He laughed. You act like your ideas belong to strangers. My marriage does not transfer government work into your company. A month later, my black operational notebook disappeared from my home office. It contained early Harbor Spine sketches, unclassified planning principles, handwritten route structures, and personal notes from the operation. Nolan said I probably left it at Fort Belvoir. 3 days later, it returned to the exact place where I normally kept it. I told myself I had overlooked it. That was easier than asking what kind of husband searched his wife's work for something he could sell. Ward Sentinel later announced a product called the Sentinel Port Continuity Grid. I saw only 6 slides. The names had changed, but the structure had not. Medical priority corridors became urgent care lanes. Fuel resilience nodes became commercial energy anchors. My handwritten sequence for linking ships, aircraft, and ground transport appeared as a polished corporate diagram. Even one error remained. During the original operation, I placed an arrow beside the wrong fuel node and corrected it by hand. The Ward Sentinel diagram preserved the first arrow beneath the corrected one. I asked Nolan where the model came from. Our team developed it. It matches Harbor's spine. Most logistics systems resemble each other. It contains my correction mark. He looked almost concerned. Eliana, you are becoming possessive about patterns that are not unique. I saw those exact patterns in my notebook. You sound paranoid. The word stayed with me because he used it so calmly. After that, Nolan controlled more of our shared calendar. Social invitations went through his assistant. Mail from professional organizations disappeared into his office. He said it reduced confusion. When the White House ceremony appeared on our schedule, he described it as a reception for private sector defense partners. He said Ward Sentinel's bid for an $86,400,000 port logistics contract had attracted senior attention. He never said my name appeared on the ceremony program. He never said the invitation code belonged to me. He even changed the guest registration so the printed reception list identified me as Mrs. Nolan Ward. The secure invitation card could not be altered. That was the one record he could not rewrite. Inside the reception hall, the ceremony began. Nolan sat several seats away from me because the protocol staff corrected the table assignments. My name card read, Colonel Eliana Ward, Operation Lantern Reach. His read, Guest of Colonel Ward. He turned the card face down. The presenter described the evacuation without revealing protected details. Then she read the approved citation. Colonel Eliana Ward designed and directed the harbor spine logistics architecture integrating maritime evacuation, medical priority corridors, fuel resilience nodes, and joint air-ground movement. Each phrase felt familiar. Not because I had written the citation, because I had recently seen the same language inside Ward Sentinel's proposal summary. The presenter continued. Her disciplined planning enabled the safe movement of more than 400 personnel dependents and patients under rapidly deteriorating conditions. I accepted the sealed citation on behalf of the entire team. I did not mention Nolan. I did not look toward him. When I returned to my seat, he leaned close. We need to leave. The ceremony is not finished. You made your point. I did not arrange this. Do not pretend you did not enjoy that. Before I could answer, a security official approached. Mr. and Colonel Ward, please remain after the reception. Nolan stood. I have a business call. Special Agent Priya Maddox needs to speak with both of you. His face changed. We were escorted to a private room inside the secure area. Priya introduced herself as an investigator with the Defense Criminal Investigative Service. She placed a proposal certification on the table. The document identified me as a technical advisor to Ward Sentinel Logistics. It stated that I voluntarily transferred Harbor Spine for commercial development. It also claimed I had notified the Army and received written approval. My digital signature appeared at the bottom. I had never seen the document. That is not my signature authorization, I said. Nolan folded his arms. You approved the concept at home. I refused it at home. You discussed the system with me. Discussing my work did not make me your employee. Priya opened another section. Ward Sentinel had billed more than 1,800 hours of consulting work under my name. The claimed labor exceeded $400,000. Many entries covered periods when I was performing duties in secure locations where I could not access civilian company systems. Priya turned to the final page. The proposal does not merely claim you advised Ward's Sentinel Colonel. She looked at Nolan. It claims his company invented the model you were honored for tonight. I watched my husband. Minutes earlier, he had warned me not to embarrass him. Now he leaned toward me and whispered something else. Do not say anything until we get home. I looked at Nolan across the secure conference table. You told me not to embarrass you before the ceremony. His voice dropped. This is different. You asked me to stay silent after investigators showed me a forged signature. We can explain it at home. Special Agent Priya Maddox closed the proposal folder. No one is leaving until the preliminary interviews are complete. Nolan stood. I am not under arrest. No, Priya said. You are being asked to remain available while we preserve evidence connected to a federal procurement submission. He looked toward me. Eliana, tell them this is a marital misunderstanding. I did not answer for him. Priya separated us. I was taken to a secure room with no windows and a single metal table. My phone was placed inside an evidence sleeve while investigators copied relevant messages and access logs. 30 minutes later, Sergeant Major Odessa King entered carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. She wore her service uniform. Her silver hair was pulled tightly beneath her cap, and the same steady expression I remembered from Operation Lantern Reach rested on her face. She placed 1 cup in front of me. Still no sugar, ma'am. Still no sugar. She sat down and removed a photograph from a folder. It showed our team beside the final evacuation aircraft. The wind had pushed everyone's uniforms against their bodies. Odessa stood near the loading ramp. I held the brass compass in one hand. Behind us, the last medical bus had just arrived. I thought this was still classified, I said. The location is protected. The personnel photograph was cleared for tonight's citation. I touched the edge of the image. Nolan had seen photographs from the operation before. He had never asked who stood beside me. He only asked which diagrams might become profitable. Odessa watched my face. He did not make your work small, ma'am. I let him describe it that way. He counted on nobody being allowed to correct him. I could have corrected the parts that were not classified. Why did you not? I looked at the coffee. Because every correction became a fight about who mattered more. Odessa leaned back. You thought silence protected the marriage. I thought there was no dignity in competing with my husband. There was never a competition. Her voice softened. He was standing on your work and asking you to bend lower. I closed my eyes for one moment. At home, Nolan had often accused me of bringing my rank into the marriage. I stopped displaying awards in shared rooms. I kept professional photographs inside my office. I asked colleagues to call me Eliana around him. None of it made him more secure. It only made my record easier for him to replace with his version. Odessa slid the photograph toward me. A quiet record is still a record. Priya returned with a digital examiner named Marcus Lee. He placed several enlarged photographs on the table. The first showed pages from my black operational notebook. I recognized my handwriting immediately. The second photograph captured the same page from a different angle. In the dark reflection of the plastic document cover, a man's hand held a phone. A gold wedding band circled one finger. The watch face showed 3:17 in the morning. Nolan owned that watch. Marcus explained that the images had been recovered from a cloud backup connected to Nolan's phone. They were taken during the 3 days my notebook disappeared. The device metadata identifies the phone model account and upload location, he said. The images were created inside your residence. Another file displayed a close image of the harbor spine diagram. My corrected arrow remained visible. Ward Sentinel's corporate graphic preserved the same line. Marcus placed the files beside each other. The company version was created 11 days after these photographs. Priya added Ward Sentinel registered the model internally 3 weeks later. I studied the images. Nolan had not misunderstood something I said over dinner. He waited until I slept, photographed the notebook, and built a commercial product from it. Marcus opened the consulting hour records next. Ward Sentinel claimed I performed 1,840 hours of technical work over 18 months. The entries included detailed descriptions: port, resilience analysis, medical movement prioritization, fuel node optimization, interagency coordination review. I had performed none of them for the company. Some dates placed me in 2 locations at once. One invoice claimed 6 hours of consulting while I was inside a restricted planning exercise at Fort Belvoir. Another billed 8 hours during an overseas assignment. A third charged the government for work on the day I attended a military funeral in Ohio. Nolan had access to enough of my calendar to choose descriptions that sounded plausible. He did not check whether my official location could prove them impossible. The claimed labor exceeds $400,000, Priya said. The hours also strengthened the company's technical experience score. So he used my name for both payment and eligibility. Yes. She opened the conflict of interest certification. The digital signature matched a signature block from an old mortgage document. It had been extracted, resized, and placed onto the federal form. The document claimed I notified my ethics office. My ethics office had no such record. It also stated I performed the consulting outside official duty hours. That sentence was repeated in 3 proposal sections. A lie becomes easier to sell when it appears in multiple places. It does not become true. Priya showed me another set of files. My White House invitation had been sent to our shared home address and to a professional email account. Nolan created a filter months earlier. Messages containing my name, ceremony, commendation, or White House were automatically forwarded to an account controlled by his assistant, then archived before reaching my inbox. The printed reception registration had also been altered. The original listed Colonel Eliana Ward, Principal Honoree, Nolan Ward's spouse and guest. The version submitted through his business office reversed us. His company had prepared a media plan for the evening. One document instructed a photographer to capture Nolan speaking with senior defense leaders while I stood beside him. The caption had already been written. Ward Sentinel founder Nolan Ward attends White House logistics ceremony with military advisor and spouse Eliana Ward. My rank was absent. My role in the ceremony was absent. The plan described the photograph as evidence of strong executive access and military support for the pending contract. Nolan did not bring me to celebrate my service. He brought me as a credential he believed he controlled. Priya opened a message thread between Nolan and Vanessa Shaw Ward, Sentinel's operations director. Vanessa wrote, "Does Colonel Ward know we used her framework?" Nolan replied, "Do not call her Colonel in client files. The company needs 1 strategist, not 2. Several weeks later, Vanessa asked whether the consulting hours had been approved. Nolan answered, "Eliana benefits from everything this company earns. Marriage is authorization enough." Another message followed. Keep her quiet. People understand her better as the uniform standing behind me. I read the sentence twice. Not because it surprised me, because it described the marriage with more honesty than anything Nolan had ever said aloud. Vanessa arrived at the secure office later that evening with her own attorney. She requested cooperation status. According to Priya, Vanessa had believed Harbor Spine was lawfully licensed. Nolan told senior staff that I prefer to remain unnamed because of military restrictions. After the ceremony, Vanessa saw the formal citation and realized the government identified me as the model's originator. She surrendered internal messages, draft proposals, billing spreadsheets, and meeting notes. One note recorded Nolan saying, Eliana will never challenge this publicly. Her career depends on avoiding scandal. He had mistaken discipline for helplessness. The White House ceremony ended without us returning to the reception. I left through a secure exit after midnight. Odessa walked beside me to the vehicle. She returned the brass compass after protocol. Staff finished documenting it for the ceremony archive. The metal felt warm from her hand. The compass originally belonged to a wounded flight coordinator during Lantern Reach. He gave it to me before being evacuated. Make sure the last aircraft knows where home is, he said. I carried it through the remainder of the operation. Odessa closed my fingers around it. You carried everybody else home. Her eyes remained on mine. Let the record carry you this time. Nolan did not return to our house that night. His attorney contacted mine the next morning. Nolan claimed the Harbor Spine material had entered the marriage as shared intellectual property. He argued that I discussed logistics concepts at home and allowed him to develop them commercially. He accused me of humiliating him in front of Admiral Callahan. His letter said, Eliana's sudden denial appears motivated by resentment after receiving public recognition. Through my attorney, I gave a careful response. I wanted to avoid unnecessary public damage to innocent employees. I would consider a limited clarification if Nolan produced a legitimate authorization showing that I transferred the model and approved the consulting arrangement before the proposal. He believed I was offering to save him. That afternoon, his attorney sent a new document. It stated that 9 months earlier, I voluntarily granted Ward Sentinel permission to adapt Harbor Spine. It also approved the use of my name, military biography, and technical services. The paper carried another copied signature. Nolan sent a personal message with it. Sign this and we can tell everyone the ceremony caused a misunderstanding. Priya's digital team examined the file. The visible date said 9 months earlier. The internal creation history said 6:42 that morning. The author account belonged to Nolan. A later revision added my copied signature after his attorney contacted mine. He had created evidence of old permission after learning investigators wanted proof. The Defense Contract Integrity Board convened an emergency session 3 weeks later. Nolan appeared with council company executives, contracting officials, and several investors. He testified that I signed the transfer authorization 9 months before the White House ceremony. Admiral Callahan sat at the head of the review panel. He opened the digital forensic report. Mr. Ward, you have described this as a long-standing authorization. Yes, Admiral. You testified that Colonel Ward signed it 9 months ago. She did. The Admiral turned one page. Then why does the file history show it was created at 6:42 in the morning after the White House ceremony? Nolan looked toward his attorney. No one answered for him. A marriage could argue about memories. A timestamp did not have a marriage to protect. Nolan looked toward his attorney. His attorney looked down at the table. Admiral Callahan waited. The hearing room remained silent long enough for the digital clock on the wall to change by 1 minute. Nolan finally answered. The file may have been recreated from an earlier paper agreement. Where's the earlier agreement? The Admiral asked. My company is still searching its archives. Who witnessed Colonel Ward sign it? I do not remember. Who submitted it to your ethics office? Nolan hesitated. My compliance team handled that. Vanessa Shaw sat 3 seats behind him. She lowered her eyes. Admiral Callahan turned to me. Colonel Ward, are you asking this board for ownership of Ward's Sentinel Logistics? No, sir. Are you seeking a financial interest in the proposed contract? No. Are you claiming Harbor Spine as your private commercial property? No. It was government work created by a joint team. Nolan's shoulders eased. He thought my refusal to claim the model personally weakened the case against him. I continued. I'm asking that the official record identify who developed the architecture, who was authorized to use it, and who was not. The Admiral nodded. Then the question before us is not who profits from the truth. He looked at Nolan. It is who profited from changing it. Special Agent Priya Maddox approached the evidence table. She placed my White House invitation beside the printed reception list. The invitation identified me as the principal honoree. The altered list identified me as Nolan's guest. Next came my sealed citation, the black notebook, the photographs taken from Nolan's phone, the federal proposal, the false conflict of interest certification, the consulting hour spreadsheet, and the backdated transfer agreement. The last item was Nolan's media plan for the White House ceremony. Priya began with the notebook photographs. The digital examiner explained the phone identifier, cloud account, date, time, and location. One enlarged image showed Nolan's wedding band reflected against the plastic page cover. Another showed the face of his watch. The company's first Harbor Spine adaptation file was created 11 days later. Nolan's attorney argued that taking photographs inside a marriage did not prove theft. Priya answered calmly. The photographs alone do not. The later proposal, false attribution, forged authorization, and billing records establish how they were used. She displayed the 2 logistics diagrams. My handwritten version appeared on the left. Ward Sentinel's corporate version appeared on the right. Every major pathway matched. So did the corrected arrow beneath the 3rd fuel node. Admiral Callahan asked Nolan, did your development team independently reproduce Colonel Ward's handwritten correction? Nolan replied, the underlying structure is common in logistics. Sergeant Major Odessa King took the witness seat. She identified my notebook and described the planning process during Operation Lantern Reach. Was Harbor Spine the work of Colonel Ward alone? The Admiral asked. No, sir. She led the design. The final architecture belonged to the joint team and the mission. Did Ward Sentinel participate? No, sir. Did Mr. Ward attend any planning session? No. Did Colonel Ward authorize commercial use while you served with her? No. Odessa opened the cleared operational archive. The earliest Harbor Spine diagram predated Ward Sentinel's corporate version by almost 3 years. The phrase medical priority corridors appeared in my mission notes. Fuel resilience nodes appeared in the approved after-action report. Joint Maritime Air Bridge appeared in the citation read at the White House. Ward's sentinel had claimed all three phrases as proprietary company language. Vanessa testified next. She looked tired, but she did not avoid Nolan's face. "When did you first ask whether Colonel Ward knew her framework was being used?" Priya asked. "About 7 months before the proposal submission." "What did Mr. Ward tell you?" "That his wife supported the company, but preferred not to appear publicly because of military ethics restrictions." "Did you ask for written approval?" "Yes." "What happened?" "He showed me a draft conflict form. It did not have a signature." "Did you see a signed version later?" "Yes." "Did you believe it was legitimate?" "At first." "What changed?" Vanessa opened the message record. She read Nolan's reply aloud. "Do not call her colonel in client files. The company needs one strategist, not two." Another message followed. "Keep her quiet. People understand her better as the uniform standing behind me." Vanessa's voice tightened. "After the White House citation, I understood he had not protected her identity. He had erased it." Nolan leaned toward his microphone. "She is protecting herself. She approved every proposal meeting." Vanessa turned toward him. "You instructed us not to invite her." "That was because of ethics rules." "You redirected her ceremony email." "I managed our household calendar." "You billed her time when she was not present." Nolan looked toward the panel. "The hours represented intellectual contribution." Priya displayed the billing sheet. 1,840 hours had been assigned to my name. The government had been charged more than $400,000. The labor descriptions included meetings I never attended and reports I never reviewed. Priya compared the claimed dates to my verified duty locations. On one date, Ward Sentinel billed 8 consulting hours while I was overseas. On another, it billed 6 hours while I was inside a restricted exercise. On a third, it billed a full day while I attended a military funeral in Ohio. Admiral Callahan asked Nolan, "How did Colonel Ward perform these services?" Nolan answered, "Her prior ideas informed the work." "Then why were the entries described as current labor?" "That was an accounting convention." "Why was she listed as a company consultant?" "It strengthened the technical team." "Why was her military ethics approval attached?" "The contracting office required it." The Admiral paused. "So when clients asked, she was merely your wife?" Nolan said nothing. "When the proposal required technical authority, she became your consultant?" No answer. "When the government required originality, her work became your company's invention?" Nolan's hands moved beneath the table. Admiral Callahan opened the White House citation. "If Colonel Ward was merely your guest and never the source of the model, why does your proposal identify her as the originating technical authority?" Nolan swallowed. "She discussed the concepts throughout our marriage. And if she approved the transfer, why was the approval created only after she denied it?" Nolan looked at me. "This is what you wanted." I remained seated. "No. You wanted everyone to know you outranked me." "My rank was never the issue." "You enjoyed watching the Admiral ignore me." "I watched him correct the guest list." Nolan's face reddened. "You always needed the room to know you were important." I looked at the black notebook. "For years I let you tell rooms that I was not." His voice softened, trying a different approach. "We built a life together. You cannot divide every idea into yours and mine." "I did not divide our marriage." "You brought federal investigators into it." You brought forged federal documents into it. The board chair instructed Nolan to stop addressing me directly. Priya presented the media plan. The proposed photograph caption described me as Nolan's spouse and military advisor. The document said the image would demonstrate senior military confidence in Ward's Sentinel. Nolan intended to use my presence while removing my authority. He wanted the uniform behind him, not the officer inside it. The panel recessed for 40 minutes. I waited in a smaller room with Odessa. She placed the old evacuation photograph beside the compass. "You were very quiet in there," she said. The evidence was speaking. "You taught us that." I looked at the final aircraft in the photograph. Recognition did not feel like victory. It felt like returning property to the correct shelf after someone had rearranged the labels. The board reconvened. Ward Sentinel's proposal for the $86,400,000 contract was removed from consideration. The company was suspended from competing for new federal work while the investigation continued. The board referred evidence involving procurement fraud, forged signatures, false labor, billing misrepresentation of conflicts, misuse of government-developed work, and creation of backdated records. Ward Sentinel's directors removed Nolan from executive authority that evening. Several investors withdrew. Employees who had relied on his representations were allowed to cooperate without being treated as equal participants in his conduct. Vanessa resigned and continued assisting investigators. The official Harbor Spine record was corrected to identify the joint team and my leadership role. It did not become my private property. Truth did not require me to claim what belonged to everyone who served beside me. Nolan later filed a complaint accusing me of using military influence to destroy his company. The review found that I had disclosed the suspected conflict, promptly avoided all procurement decisions involving Ward Sentinel, and cooperated within authorized channels. His complaint was dismissed. His criminal and civil exposure continued through the proper processes. I did not celebrate any of it. A company contained people with mortgages, children, and careers. Nolan had placed all of them beneath the weight of a lie they did not fully understand. Consequences are necessary. They are not entertainment. 2 months later, Nolan sent a letter through his attorney. He wrote that standing beside me had always made him feel invisible. He said he believed that if clients saw my full career, they would stop seeing him. I answered once, "My service never made you smaller. Stealing it did." I filed for divorce. All communication went through counsel. Nolan was prohibited from using my name, rank, image, biography, or military record in business materials. I did not seek ownership of Ward Sentinel. I did not ask for a share of the failed contract. I asked only that my record remain accurate and that his actions remain attached to his name. Some former employees apologized for introducing me as Nolan's wife instead of Colonel Ward. I accepted the apologies that came with changed behavior. Forgiveness did not require pretending they could never have asked a second question. 1 year later, I remained at Fort Belvoir. I helped create the Quiet Record Initiative with Odessa. The program supported service members whose sensitive duties prevented them from publicly correcting false claims. We taught them to protect official invitations, review conflict disclosures, secure personal work notes, monitor the use of their biographies, and seek ethics guidance before a spouse or company turns silence into permission. At our first small recognition ceremony, Odessa introduced me without shortening anything. Colonel Eliana Ward, United States Army. I carried the brass compass in my palm. A young officer approached afterward. "Ma'am, what if telling the truth makes someone beside me feel small?" I closed the compass and handed it back to her. Truth does not shrink people. It only removes the height they borrowed from a lie. The salute at the White House did not give me rank. It exposed the man who had pretended I had none. Nolan called my service background until he needed it in the foreground of his proposal. He was not ashamed of my career. He was afraid it would reveal the source of his. Recognition was not revenge. It was the moment his version lost control of the room. My silence had protected a mission. It had never authorized him to steal the credit. If someone repeatedly minimizes your work while privately using your name, credentials, ideas, or access, preserve the original records. Quiet service still leaves evidence, and the correct authority can read what manipulation tries to erase. I would be honored if you shared this story with someone who has been asked to become smaller for another person's comfort, and joined me again for another story about service dignity and the record that finally speaks.